So now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dorothy Advincula, Senior Vice President with Ipsos's Media Development Team. Dorothy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ellen. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining me today. We're actually going to be keeping today's session pretty short, under the half hour that we were originally slated for. So we really appreciate your generous time with us today. And my name is Dorothy Ann Advincula, and I lead Ipsos Audience Measurement, where we specialize in delivering insights about today's consumers that shape content and media strategies. My particular expertise is on audience insights, helping marketers and researchers to truly know their audiences so they can build better products, content, and purposeful brands. Today, I will share with you some trends we are learning about the kids and family audience during the Great Lockdown. Just to set up our time together, today, we all know that the Great Lockdown was brought about by the rise of COVID-19 cases in the US during the period between March and June 2020. This was the time when families were asked to shelter in place as workplaces and schools closed their doors to curb the spread of the virus. This period will be the focus of our conversation, as it has a bit to teach us as we navigate the new normal we are in, of blended models to learning and continued work from home policies. Before we delve into the insight, I will quickly talk about our Ipsos Audience Intelligence Suite, of which the Ipsos Kids and Family Survey is a part of. Then I will do a brief overview of the study methodology. Then we'll talk about the top trends we are observing about the kids and family media experience during the Great Lockdown. The Ipsos Kids and Family Survey is part of the Ipsos Audience Intelligence lineup of syndicated media research. With it, we have the Ipsos Affluence Survey, which you may be familiar with, which is our premier study of affluence globally. We also have TV Dailies, which is our US tracker of new and returning series to television. And we have Streaming 360, which is our streaming video research offering. And of course, last but not least, we have the Ipsos Kids and Family Survey, which we will cover, which is our study that taps into the combined family media experience, as well as the youth standalone experience. So let's talk about Ipsos Kids and Family. Some of you may be familiar with its former name, the LMX study. This study trends over 3 years and is updated biannually in the spring and the fall. It is in field year-round with a goal to interview 5,000 parents and families in each wave, allowing us to capture the rapidly changing media consumption and technology landscape. The study comprises of a survey as well as a media diary to capture kids and family media consumption through a single day. Such a comprehensive methodology allows us to capture the sticky and in-the-moment media behaviors while also being able to get greater insight into other topics pertinent to the American family, such as decision-making, content discovery, and advertising impact. For today's results, we are looking at our spring 2020 analysis, which fielded from October to March 2020, and a subset of our next wave releasing in November, which fielded during the Great Lockdown in April and May of 2020. There is a lot to learn just from our Kids and Family Survey. In our report, we typically cover 7 learning areas when we do our analysis. Today, we will only cover highlights from 4 sections, so this is really just the tip of the iceberg. And here are the things we are discovering about the American family during that Great Lockdown in early spring. The first is they are spending more time together. Second, there's a lot of watching happening. Third, kids are picking up on new media behaviors such as podcasts and getting on platforms like TikTok. That said, we shall see what the future holds for TikTok given their Oracle acquisition from just yesterday. And lastly, we found that when it was difficult for families to be out and about, content became even more essential. First, let's look at trends in video content viewing among families. A year ago, time spent by families watching streaming video equaled TV for the first time, and the gap has widened since, and streaming video kept increasing. Live TV co-viewing also increased slightly during the lockdown, but still have a bit to catch up with streaming video, which was also increasing. What this shows is that video behaviors overall were increasing during the lockdown period. Most streaming services hold steady, although Disney Plus clearly is marking its territory among the family cohort, even more so during the lockdown months, even chipping away from Netflix's share. And the devices that kids use to stream video shifted from mobile into laptops and tablets. If you look at the yellow bars in this slide, we see other devices like smartphones decreasing or going steady like TV. And we see laptops and tablets increase. This is indicative of the consequent rise in video streaming due to distance learning or shelter-in-place homeschooling occurring. But other than education materials or schooling, you know what else kids are watching online during the Great Lockdown? Cartoons, TV shows, and video game videos. This is indicative of online video content seeming to also serve as not only teachers' aides, but also as virtual babysitters, keeping kids entertained. But it's not just video they are watching online. Let's take a look at the overall online usage among kids and families during the Great Lockdown. Earlier, we talked about how the pandemic or the shelter-in-place mandate brought about more time spending together for families, and that includes even online time. During the lockdown, families increased their time spent online to nearly 8 hours per day, nearly a full hour more versus just the 6 month period prior. And that extra hour is because of the extra time doing schoolwork at home now. While schoolwork online and video chats already have been increasing even prior to the pandemic, the shelter in place even further accelerated the use case in the home. But other than schoolwork, immersing with their parents at home teach kids new media habits, thus the rise of the podcast. 1 in 4 kids now listen to podcasts, up 20% in just 6 months. Music, comedy, and kid genres are the most popular among this cohort, but there has been significant growth across almost all genres. But who listens to podcasts among children? There seems to be a skew among boys, with 6 in 10 boys being podcast listeners, and teens. Streaming music seems to be a precursor to podcast listening, hence the move among music services into more podcast programming is a step in the right direction. Make sure to check out the Ipsos website for our article on podcast for more of our POV on this particular topic. So now let's talk about social media. Prior to the pandemic, this was the year that Instagram was being forecasted or predicted to surpass FB or Facebook for teen cohort, and TikTok was iffy. It looked like a fad. Maybe it will go away in a few months. Until the lockdown happened, and there was just time to do all of those challenges and basically new content among teens through TikTok. While this slide shows us that Snapchat and Instagram still saw steady growth, TikTok saw its membership triple in just 6 months, being used by 1 in 3 school-age kids. No wonder it was attracting so much attention from policymakers. And with yesterday's acquisition, it will be interesting how Oracle will manage TikTok's growth and leverage the fastest growing user base. And here is who is emerging to be using TikTok. Mostly girls and teenagers. So 57% of users of TikTok are girls. And we also see that 55% of TikTok users among kids 6 to 17 are teenagers. It is also used equally by heavy or lighter users of social media. So it's not just about being social media because it spans the spectrum among social media children users. And it will be interesting to see if these user profiles will change over time. And it's not all about the time families spend online. The greater time spent by families together also extend the playtime. Traditional toys are still very much a part of the family's playtime, as you can see, and is often used by both parents and kids together. But during the lockdown, parents of preteens, so the 6 to 12-year-old cohort, that second section, the second group in this chart, we see that they have been playing with their child even more during the lockdown. So probably one of the benefits of being at home more often. And board games and puzzles are not just for the board. The use of these toys among families during the lockdown remains strong, as are construction sets, which is showing the immersive and cooperative play remaining to be the key type of toys and play that families use during the lockdown. And just how much are kids influencing essential decisions that are being made in the home during the lockdown? Kids play an integral role. We already know this in family purchases, including vacations, groceries, dining, and streaming services. This was prior to the lockdown. And during that lockdown, the influence has increased further among children for content-related categories, like their influence on streaming services, technology, and TV services. And a child's opinion is even more so a key factor in a family's content choices during the lockdown, making them key decision makers in essential family entertainment during a time of uncertainty. So this is all of the data that we have. So what are we really taking away from all of this information? The lockdown month is what we consider quite a definitive time. It shaped how kids and families will adapt to the new normal. Even as restrictions may have eased up now, the pandemic is still being managed and families are still wary. Thus, it is important for us marketers to take a look back and learn from habits that kids and families picked up during this time to guide our innovation and strategy moving forward. First, the forced hunkering down of families actually became an important period for families to bond with each other. As we have seen in the data, families were doing more together, watching, playing, deciding together during the lockdown. Second, it took a pandemic for the meteoric rise of online platforms like TikTok or even Zoom. They have been here even before the pandemic, but there was something about sheltering in place and the very human need for connection and entertainment that helped bring TikTok, Zoom, and podcasts to the forefront of the family media experience. The third point can go without saying, but the point here really is that content is essential to the family and to childhood. The rise of family-focused platforms, content platforms, and the child's growing influence in the family's media choices are proof of this. And with that, we conclude our session. Please feel free to post any questions in the chat box if you have not yet done so. And we thank you for joining us today. So back to you, Ellen.
Well, thank you, Dorothy. That was some really great information. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for today. We've kept our session brief, as Dorothy mentioned, but you will receive an email with a direct link to today's recorded presentation and any answers to your questions that you may have submitted while we've been running the session. Please feel free to reach out to us. That now concludes today's webinar. Have a wonderful day.